Today, we're going to dive into a conversation you might not even realize you're a part of. It's that constant, hidden dialogue between your mind and your body. Let's try and decode what it's really trying to tell you.
You know that feeling, right? A sudden ache that just makes no sense. Or maybe a patch of thinning hair that seems to pop up out of nowhere. You just feel like something's off, but you can't for the life of you figure out what or why.
Well, what if I told you that these physical signs aren't just random bits of bad luck? Our sources today make the case that they're actually signals. They're your body's way of sending an urgent message about what's really happening on the inside. Everything from your stress levels to your hormones. So, how can a thought or a feeling actually cause a real physical reaction? Well, it turns out our bodies have this incredible kind of internal telegraph system, a super sophisticated network that connects your brain to, well, everything else. It's called the HPA axis. Now, just think of it as your body's central command for stress. It's basically a biological superhighway that takes something like psychological stress and turns it into a physical reality. This isn't just something that's all in your head. It's a real, tangible, physical system. So here's how it works. When your brain senses a threat, and that could be anything from a work deadline to a deep-seated anxiety, it just flips a switch on the HPA axis, and that unleashes this cascade of hormones like cortisol that flood your system. They change your immune response, they can create inflammation, and just like that, a feeling becomes a physical event in your body. Okay, let's see this system in action with our first case study, the pretty surprising link between what's going on in our head and what's going on with our hair. And this isn't just a guess, it's based on a big scientific review. What's really fascinating is that this connection might actually have deep evolutionary roots. In times of extreme stress, like famine or danger, the body is smart. It pushes resources away from non-essential things like growing hair to focus on pure survival. It's like a primal off switch. And the research reveals this really cruel two-way street. Stress can absolutely trigger hair loss, but then the act of losing your hair can create immense psychological distress all on its own. It becomes this vicious cycle that can feel totally impossible to break. And again, this is not just a theory. Researchers did what's called a systematic review, basically a study of studies, pulling together data from 17 different papers. They looked at over 9,000 patients with hair loss and compared them to a control group of almost 21,000 people. The scale we're talking about here is just massive. And the results? They were really striking. The review found that over a third, 35.1%, of patients with hair loss also had a diagnosed mental health disorder. Now, compare that to the control group, where the number was just 8%. That is a huge difference. It shows a really clear, significant link. The research actually gets even more specific, which is fascinating. It links different kinds of mental states to different types of hair loss. For example, acute sudden stress was most strongly tied to alopecia areata, which is an autoimmune condition. Meanwhile, general anxiety was linked more to that sudden excessive shedding we call telogen effluvium. Okay, so we've seen how an external psychological stressor can set off the body's alarm bells. But what happens when the messengers inside the system are the ones that start to change? Let's get into our second case study, the connection between menopause and that widespread, kind of mysterious physical pain. This is a story that millions of women go through, but it's one we rarely talk about so openly. This quote from a personal testimony, man, it just perfectly captures that confusion and frustration, the feeling that your own body is betraying you, with aches and pains just showing up everywhere, and nobody can tell you why. It's a really, really isolating experience. So what is the biological story here? Well, before menopause, hormones like estrogen and progesterone are kind of like the body's silent protectors. Estrogen is absolutely crucial for keeping inflammation in check and for producing collagen, the literal glue that holds our joints together. And at the same time, progesterone also fights inflammation and can even change how we perceive pain. So when those hormones start to decline, that protection just fades away. And the result? It can feel like a body in revolt. Widespread inflammation leads to stiff joints, aching muscles, and we see these bizarre injuries like frozen shoulder or pulling a muscle just from brushing your hair. This is not imagined. It is a direct physiological response to a hormonal shift. Okay, so we have these two really different stories. One is rooted in psychology, the other in hormones, but they share this incredibly powerful common theme. It doesn't matter if the trigger is psychological stress or a hormonal shift, the pattern is the same. The body is using a physical symptom to signal a much deeper imbalance. And this really brings us to two very different but parallel journeys. On one side, you have the scientific community saying that more research is absolutely critical to find no treatments. And on the other side, you have individuals on their own personal mission to find anything, like a collagen supplement that might offer them some relief right now. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? The real message that's hidden in all the data and the personal stories is really about shifting our whole perspective. It's about learning how to listen. We're so often taught to see a symptom as just a problem that needs to be fixed or, just eliminated. But what if we reframe that? What if that aching joint or that thinning hair isn't just a nuisance, but a vital piece of information, a signal that something deeper really needs our attention? And that's really the crucial point here. We can't treat the body in pieces. Your mental health, your hormonal balance, your physical well-being, they are not separate issues. They are all part of one single interconnected system. And real health comes from understanding that system as a whole. So, I'm going to leave you with this thought. Your body is communicating with you every single day through every little ache, pain, and change. The real question is, are you listening to what it has to say? Thanks for tuning in.